I think we're getting very close to rediscovering some of the things that our ancient ancestors were up to. And maybe this would be worth a whole show in itself. We could dive into this, and I don't want to get into that today.
But what kind of technologies are you talking about?
Well,
I shouldn't really get into that.
Get into it.
Get into
Come
it,
on.
Randall.
We got to get into it.
Okay, well...
We've opened the door, sir.
Okay. Well, okay. There are people out there now who have been working on trying to rediscover that. There are people who've been working on these things for decades now. And I've had the privilege of talking to some of these people over the last 6 or 7 years who are basically going to open source a whole lot of stuff in the next 3 months so it can never get suppressed again. And that's why I'd like to come back and talk in more detail.
Well, I'd love to have you come back and talk about it, but we got to talk about it a little bit now.
okay. Well,
there's a laboratory right now in the Maldives that's been building prototypes using these technological principles, which are based on implosion rather than explosion. And the inspiration for this...
Tesla's ideas are part of it, I think you mentioned.
Tesla's ideas are very much a part of it. Yes, Tesla's ideas are very much a part of it. So is, I don't know if you ever, Victor Schauberger, who did the work with water and discovered,
I always go back to the ancient Egyptian traditions that speak of priests chanting as these huge blocks were lifted into the air. Were they using some kind of sound effect, some kind of use of sound that was able to manipulate matter? We know that sound can manipulate. What Randall's talking about now is people who are working on a whole alternative path of technology, and maybe that's a rediscovery of the kind of technologies that were used by a lost civilization.
I think that's what's important about what you're saying.
This is the work of Nikola Tesla. And he was...
Again, this is way too much for us to get in today. That's why we need to devote a whole session to talking about this. Okay. But this was the inspiration. You know, his work was suppressed. A lot of his patents were taken, sealed up by the U.S. government for whatever reason. I don't know. But
this is some of the stuff that's now being developed using his ideas plus some of the others. This is the man I've been talking to for the last 7 years.
Malcolm Bendall?
Yes. And again, I don't want to get into it today, but like, here's an example of what they're doing. This is a generator that has no moving parts. It's all based on geometry, pure geometry. Mm-hmm. And here's the basic idea, as I think I understand it at this point. Resonance frequencies. Everything vibrates. Have you ever, like if we had an electric razor, we plugged it in, turned it on, set it on this table, bzz, it's going to move around, isn't it? You ever seen that?
Yeah.
That's the beginning of the concept because it's vibrating. Everything vibrates at a frequency, and if you know that frequency, you can control things. And I think that's the basic idea of what we're looking at here. And it's all based upon the ancient numbers. And they're developing technologies right now, and they have been. I was recently contacted and given the go-ahead that I could talk. I've been sitting on this for 7 years without talking about it because they asked me not to talk about it until they had their patents in place and their licensing. That's all happened since last summer. So we're now free to talk about it.
Through this technology, they're able to move stones or cut stones or all the above?
All the above.
And even transport them? Whoa,
Yes.
what is all this?
Well, this is the model, and this is diagramming all the frequencies of the elements and what their vibrational frequencies are and the numbers that measure those frequencies. And they're all the numbers we get from looking at these ancient traditions that recur over and over and over again, that I've been talking about in my sacred geometry classes for decades without knowing what the final result was going to be. So this inventor who's working with this small group contacted me, and this is what he told me. He said, you built the foundation. He said, you laid the foundation with your work on ancient geometry, and I built a house on top of it. That's what he said.
Nice.
So for 7 years, he's been supplying me with all the information. I have copies of all the patents. I have videos of the testing of the prototypes. And Mazda, the car manufacturer in Japan, is getting ready to do a $25 million testing of some of these prototypes that they believe they can retrofit internal combustion engines with. And there's over 100, they've developed over 100 patents on some of this stuff. And it's amazing.
And what would be the fuel?
Plasmoids. Plasmoids, as it says here, are donut or toroidal-shaped clusters of net protons or net electrons that once captured and placed into a toroidal orbit are capable of absorbing, storing, and releasing enormous amounts of energy within their self-generated and structured electromagnetic containment field. Plasmoids, in effect, function as an atomic battery that can be self-charging due to its ability to convert matter to available clean energy. So it's a lot to get into, and I think it would take us kind of off what we're here to talk about today.
At least what's promising is that there is some, at least, research or understanding.
And it's actually quite mature at this point. And in order to avoid the kinds of fate that befell Tesla and Reich, Robert Oppenheimer, Victor Schauberger, and so many others that were working in these fields, all kind of converging on this same insight. It's been conducted in secret. The laboratory that they've been developing this is in the Maldives, so that it's been immune from government interference. And now I think it's about ready to go the next.
And what is the motivation of the suppressing of this information?
There are huge corporations that have very large investments in a particular path of technology, which is ours.
Right.
And for somebody to come up with a whole new path of technology, it's very threatening to them. And much better from their point of view to suppress it, or if they can't suppress it, to kind of buy it and hide it. I would say that's the motive.
And what I've seen in the last half a decade or more has initially skeptical, but as I've learned more, gone arduously through these patents and things, I've become convinced that, yeah, there is something here. I had a meeting with 4 gentlemen that are putting the money into this, developing these prototypes. One of them said to me,
Well, when I first heard this, I didn't believe this was possible. But he says, I've seen the machines, I've seen the technology work. I'm now convinced. So they've done their initial prototypes.
and now they're going to do this major testing. Mazda, automobile manufacturer in Japan, has come on board, said you can use our laboratories, and because of course what they're thinking is that they may be able to get the end run around all the other competition. And one of the things, and when I come back, we can look into this. I've got the videos of testing the prototypes, like taking an initial test showed that the internal combustion engine went from about a 30% efficiency to 80% efficiency. And this is just the initial prototypes. I can come on your show. We can look at the videos. I can show you all of it. I'd love to. So they're going to open source all of it within the next few months around the world. So they're looking for venues to put this information out because